buckle up. It's time to take the trip, buckle up.
You're listening to the Take the Trip podcast, where you'll find real talk and zero filter. I'm your host, Kendra Fogarty, and today I'm here with Sara, who's over on her lovely corner of the internet at Sujanos Travels. Sara's out there sharing the beauty of camping, cruising, hiking, and epic local finds as our neighbors to the north in Canada. And she's also a certified travel agent on the side who's booked trips and lived the stories behind them. Sara, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
So you feature cruises, but you also do camping. So it's like so versatile, right? So I want to hear about some of your camping experience, like what was like the kind of most outdoorsy or roughest experience you had, but also I want to hear about your bougiest or most extravagant cruise or trip that you've taken.
Ooh, those are both really good topics because they are pretty much all I like talking about is camping and cruising.
I love it. Is there a really extravagant cruise that you went on? What was the one where you're like, this was a major splurge?
Yes. So I would say probably when we went to Italy, Greece, and Turkey, we hadn't traveled to Europe together. We were taking a cruise, which was one of our very first cruises. So I think that was probably the most bougie or lavish cruise that we ever took because it was in Europe and we were seeing all of these beautiful historic places and we didn't know if we would ever go back. So we were like, YOLO, let's live this up and enjoy it. And so we just took, I think we were there for about 3 weeks with a 10-day cruise in the middle. And so it was just super fun to see things we wouldn't normally see here in Canada because everything is just so beautiful. Everywhere you turn is picturesque and so pretty. And the cruise portion of it, I love cruising just because there's so much to do on a cruise. So once we got back on the ship, then we were going to the shows and it was like Broadway shows and fancy cocktails and things that just we don't do in our normal day-to-day lives. So that's probably the fanciest one that we went on.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's just so fun to have a different lifestyle for a while, right? And the instant image I had, I've actually never been on a cruise, but it was just like the Titanic scene where she walks down the stairs, is what I imagine.
Yeah, they do have like formal or dress your best kind of nights. And so I think at the time we did those things. So we're like, oh, we have to dress up. People were in gowns and tuxedos and we brought nice clothes, but my husband was like, I'm not wearing a tuxedo. And we didn't want to lug a tuxedo around or like a suit for 3 weeks of kind of backpacking almost through Rome and stuff. So we didn't do that, but there were people decked out.
Okay, that's good to know if we ever go on one so I don't show up just in my sweats, my
Yeah.
preferred attire. And that's really interesting you hacked your visit and put a cruise in between. That's really smart because once you fly out there, right, that's the bulk of the cost. So you might as well maximize it as best you can. So that's really smart. I don't think I'd ever considered that. We were looking at the repositioning cruises to try to figure out if that was kind of a way to go, but I didn't consider the do a cruise while you're there. So that's a good tip. I've got my wheels turning. So then what about on the very other end of it? Have you ever had any camping experiences that just totally did not turn out how you expected?
Yeah, I would say I think one time we had so much rain that our campsite was flooded. Our fire pit was flooded. We had the pool around it, so we couldn't even go sit and try and have a campfire. It was super buggy. There were so many mosquitoes. My husband is, I think, allergic to mosquitoes. And so he was getting these like big bites and he didn't even want to go outside. And so I would say we've had a lot of weather related camping mishaps where luckily no leaks in our trailer, knock on wood, but just like really bad weather that's kind of rained out all of our plans and we're just stuck inside trying to play board games or cards or something in our tiny trailer when we first started camping. And so I would say that's probably been the worst. We haven't had any true mishaps yet when it comes to camping, and hopefully we never do, but I'm sure it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it's so true. Like camping, whether you're, when you're in a trailer, like, yes, so you have that shelter, that's nice, but it still totally kills the vibe. I can't, sometimes when I see the tent campers and it's bad weather, I'm just like, my heart goes out to them. And it's such dedication because I'd be like packing it up and going home immediately,
Yeah.
like would not have made the trip. And we've been there too, where it's like you have a waterfront site that you didn't intend to.
But last year, actually, speaking of tent campers, we were at a park and a tornado went through there was a huge storm, a tornado went through the area, and luckily not our specific park, but it knocked out all of the power and trees were down, and it was really serious. A few parks kind of got hit really hard here, then people were there, but all we lost power, and so we didn't have any power for, like, I don't know, 12 or more hours. We ended up just packing up early and going home then too. So weather has just been one of the things that has been the worst mishap that we've had so far.
My goodness, that sounds so terrifying. Yeah, the tornadoes in RVing is such a fear. I
Mhm.
don't hear many about in, like, Canada, though. I actually didn't really know. Is that a common
Like, I don't ever really remember tornadoes and things like that, but, like, this storm was really bad. They confirmed it was a tornado, and it basically decimated one of our Ontario provincial parks, which is so sad. I haven't been to that one, but I heard it was a really beautiful park, and so now they're trying to rebuild it, but it does happen. We've had a couple seasons ago, it hit another park, and there's just been some really bad weather events that have impacted some of our camping infrastructure here in terms of our Ontario provincial parks, but across the country, I'm sure there's tons of weather events taking place that are impacting camping.
Yeah, yeah, it's a a definite fear. Wow. And then losing electricity. Yes, like there's one thing when you're camping on purpose without electricity, right? That's a
Yes.
thing, but you have to be mentally prepared for that. So when you are not equipped to boondock or you don't have that setup, it is so disorienting. We've definitely lost power more than once. Once we were in the Florida Keys and there was a huge storm that knocked out the electricity. So this was just pitch blackness, right? There were no street lights, no electricity on all the islands. It was such a strange feeling because you're just there, like you're just on an island in the middle of the ocean and there's just nothing. And then you're like, wait, like, what if they can't fix it? Or like, what is going on? It's just so uncomfortable. But yeah, it's never, never good to lose electricity when you're camping if you're not trying to,
And
to rough it
we
like that.
don't try to lose electricity.
Yeah,
We
right.
like to have electricity when we camp.
Yeah, same. And I do want to circle back to the mosquitoes thing because you said your husband might be allergic to mosquitoes. And I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, living in Canada and possibly having a mosquito allergy, that has to be extremely itchy and extremely, extremely painful. That's
Yeah, and
so
I
rough.
think, like, they just swarm to him. He gets these big bumps, like, big welts, they look like, and so I think there must be some sort of allergy there, but yeah, it's not fun for him, and I'm sure a lot of people, we if you go further up north, the mosquitoes are way worse, and you said you were in Florida. I think they have pretty bad mosquitoes there too, so
Yes.
you might have
They're
to
no joke down in Florida. But the
Yeah.
nice thing so we're in California right now, and there's, like, no mosquitoes. So, like, west, it feels like there's, like, none, but it is winter. I don't know how it gets in the summer. I am curious, are there any parts of Canada that are like that? Like, on the western side, or is it all just probably because it's so forested?
When we were in British Columbia and we were on Vancouver Island, in
Mhm.
the summer, we didn't have any mosquitoes while we
Hmm.
were there, and so that was really nice, but everywhere around here in Ontario in the summertime, it's like bug central, so mosquitoes, black flies, horse flies, just all the flies.
Yeah, that is such a challenge. All right. So, Sarah, you are also a certified travel agent in addition to
Yes.
working your full time job. So, spill the tea. What's something that every traveler should do, but almost no one actually does? Like, are there any words of wisdom that you would recommend that travelers should be doing that they're not doing typically?
Checking the expiry date on your passport. So, I have had numerous clients come to me, they wanna book a trip, and they're ready to book, and then they give me their passport information. I'm like, "Did you not check the date?" Like, the date is coming up on expiry or will expire while you're on your trip, and so knowing all the different regulations and rules across the countries about how long your passport needs to be valid, that would be one because documentation is very important for travel. And then just, I would say, making sure that you have the right visa. Like if you need a visa to go somewhere, if you need some sort of application to get in, that you leave yourself enough time. So the documentation portion would be key.
Okay, that's really good advice. And it was so relatable because while I didn't have a planned trip, I let my passport lapse because I was like, I'm not going to need to, I'm not really planning. I'll just get it when I go. However, sometimes things come up in life that you don't plan for. I was failing as an adult because I forgot that the US had that new rule where you can't fly just with your ID. You have to have a fancy ID or a passport from Ohio. And I was like on the other side of the country and I had a family emergency that I
Mhm.
wanted to fly home for. And then I realized that I couldn't because I would have to go to that state to get my ID, which I would have to fly to get there. And I had let my passport lapse. So that is a good, very good piece of advice. I also wonder insurance, flight, travel, hotel, those insurances. Do you recommend those?
I do recommend having especially medical insurance, cancellation insurance, like all of the different types of insurance that keep you safe as a traveler because there are so many things that you just can't control, right? If you have a medical issue while you're before your trip and need to cancel your trip, or if you're on your trip and you're in a different country and something happens, like you need to have that insurance. So I almost feel if you can't afford the proper insurance for your trip, then you really can't afford your trip, right? Because you need to be prepared for any sort of emergency that could go wrong. And if you have something that happens before you go on your trip and then you can't cancel it, then you could just be out all of that money. So it's really about protecting you. You do pay for it and hope you never have to use it, right? It's not something that you're like, oh, yes, I'm going to get all this insurance. This is so great. It's great to have it when you need it. And if you don't have it, you could really lose out on a lot of money. And so I do recommend making sure that you have insurance. We always personally have all the types of insurance that we can get to feel comfortable and make sure that we protect our trip and our investment because it's so much money to travel these days. It's not cheap and you could be saving for years to go on a dream trip and so you definitely would want to protect it. So I always say make sure you look into it and pick the right insurance for you.
That's good advice. Thank you. Because and it's very responsible because I'm always the one that's like, I'm gonna roll the dice on this. So I probably needed to hear that. So thank you.
Yeah, well, even with airfare these days, I know the US has a lot more options than we do in Canada, but now you have all of these different, fare classes, and so just buy your ticket so you can get on the plane, but you can't bring anything with you, right? And then you can't cancel it, you don't get your money back, and so you pay for the one that you can cancel right up to an hour before your trip, and the cost difference could be $1,000 or more, right? Like it's just crazy how much things cost in the US, I've seen better fares and you have some different airlines that we don't have, like in budget airlines that we don't really have here. So it's just so expensive for flying that, to add a bag, to add a carry-on, you don't get to just bring these things anymore. And so travel has gotten quite expensive.
Yeah, you're so right. It's like that bait and switch because you
Yeah.
see the price tag and you're like, oh, great. And then you look in and then you're like, oh, for my bag. And if you want to sit by the person you're traveling with, and I'm like, this is crazy. What, like, I'm going to come on with my kids and you're going to tell me that, like, my 2-year-old is going to go sit alone over there? Like, come on. So I don't know. Yeah, but it is very frustrating and so true that it just keeps piling on. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden it's a totally different ticket price than you were
Yes.
anticipating.
Yeah, fares starting as low as $10, and then by the time you check out, it's like 1,000, $2,000 for a couple, it's crazy.
It really is. So have you ever had a situation where you've needed to cancel a trip or that you needed to use your insurance?
Yeah, during COVID, we had to cancel a couple of trips, which what luckily I bought cancelable, and this is where I learned it, is that I didn't have insurance. And so luckily I had cancelable fares or cancelable reservations. But if I didn't, I would have just been out all of that money. And so that was kind of the learning point for me. And that was just my early days of becoming a travel agent. And so since that point on, from myself personally, when I recommend it, it's because I personally was experiencing what it might feel like to lose all of that money. We had to cancel a trip to Mexico, we had to cancel a trip to Europe. And so since 2020, actually since 2018, we never rebooked that trip to Europe. So I'm overdue for that trip that I had to cancel.
It's so true. We never want to think that it's possible that we're going to have to cancel our dream trip, right? But there's things that
Mhm.
come up that happen. So those are good reminders. And I hope you get your Europe trip in soon. That
I
is
hope so one day.
Winter makes everyday things harder. Dead batteries, snowed in driveways, messy cars, and getting stuck when you least expect it. If you're anything like me, it's also always when you're already running late. That's why this episode is brought to you in part by eTrailer, because winter has a way of keeping us on our toes. Even when we try to snowbird, it always seems to find us somewhere, at least for a few days. So whether you're gearing up for winter or you're dealing with it as it comes, eTrailer helps keep you on the road with gear like tire chains, battery chargers, floor mats, and recovery equipment you can trust. You know, the kind of gear you're glad you planned for when conditions change fast. Head over to eTrailer.com or click the link in the notes to find winter gear that fits your vehicle and handles whatever the season throws at you, so you can spend less time stressing about freezing and more time drinking hot toddies or skiing or whatever it is that brings you joy when that snow is falling. So I'm sure you have saved so many people from like a failed vacation, or you've set them up to have the best time possible. But I am just very curious. Have you ever worked with someone and they ended up getting like the worst weather, or maybe they just for some reason didn't even like the area that they were? I don't know. That maybe happens. Something that's just so outside of your control. Have you ever had someone who was like mad at you that you didn't make the sun shine or something like that?
Yeah, so I booked a trip many years ago for a couple who wanted to go away to Mexico. Did all the research, found exactly what they were looking for, put together this package that, met all of their needs, the type of place they wanted to stay, what they wanted to do, etc. And then they decided that's not the resort they wanted to go to. They want to go to this budget resort that their friends found that they think is going to be more fun, and so that's what they wanted me to book for them. So I gave them my professional opinion that, I'm not sure that's the best fit for you based on everything you told me. And so they still went with that because that's where their friends were going to go. They had the worst weather, which you can't control, and seaweed. In Mexico, depending on where you are, they have a lot of sargassum, and it's just there. It's just known. And so I got messages about that they hated the resort and that it was like really smelly and the food wasn't good and they didn't like the activities and the entertainment and they couldn't sit on the beach because it was just a small beach and full of seaweed. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, I didn't recommend this place. And so that's really unfortunate that you're experiencing this. Would you like to move resorts? No. Okay, well, what would you like me to do for you? Well, I'm here in Canada and you're here in Mexico, and I can't, physically shovel seaweed off the beach for you. So they were just very interesting clients to work with. They thought that their friends knew what they were talking about. Their friends weren't professional travel agents, didn't know the area. They just got a good deal, and so that's what they were going to do. And so unfortunately, it does happen. You don't always get the best experience because of weather. Luckily, it was just rain. Like, when you go down south, you should expect rain because they get rain showers often and then it goes away and the sun comes out. But they had some torrential downpours while they were there. So, yes, they did not enjoy the overall trip, but I stand by, I did not recommend it.
How awkward and uncomfortable too, and
Yeah,
probably just so frustrating for you wanting to be like, "Wait, what? Why are you coming at me? I warned you." Oh my goodness. It's gotta get tricky sometime. I'm sure the amount of times you receive someone that's like, "Oh my gosh, that was epic. I'm so glad I found that place." Like, I'm sure that heavily outweighs anyone who's like,
it
"That wasn't
does.
what I was
Yeah.
expecting." Okay, so speaking of people that just don't understand how things work, tell us some of the craziest things you've seen when people have broken camping etiquette.
Gosh, one thing that really burns my I just get really upset when people cut through your campsite. And so we had a really beautiful waterfront site last year. We were facing it, so as soon as we opened our door, we just could see the water. It was so pretty. We had a path down to the beach area. The beach area is public, but the path up to your site is like your path to your site. There's no other roads, right? Like that's our site. And so we just had people cutting through our site multiple times throughout the day. While we were sitting right there, like looking out at the water, people just came up and they're like, "Oh, hi," and just kind of like walked the rest of the way through our site, just cutting through. So that one really bothers me. It's like you paid for that site. That's your little property while you're there. Don't cut through somebody else's site. I would say that's a really big one for me.
Yeah.
Blasting music, that
Yeah.
one, it's like, I get it, people wanna have fun with their friends, but, like, at a certain point in the evening, People just want to relax and enjoy nature sounds, especially going out camping on the weekends. It's to escape the hustle and bustle and the noise of the city, and you just want to be peace in nature. Some people, I guess, want to have like a party and fun, good times. So we've had quite a few experiences where it was just like someone was having a rave in the in the campground somewhere and everyone heard it. Generally it doesn't bother me too much, but just like when it's way too loud, I just can't even hear who I'm speaking with. That's another one that gets me.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. It's like
Yeah.
the bass
Yes.
when shaking my body, like I can feel it
Yes.
inside my soul.
Oh,
I just don't like I really struggle with that. I'm
mhm.
always like sometimes like how am I living this life just because I'm super sensitive to that like vibration.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's difficult. And it's like so true. Exactly what you said. It's like people are camping for different reasons, I guess. And the raves are surprising to me. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's definitely tricky for sure. And then the sight cutting through. Oh my gosh, yes, that is so frustrating. And like when you've paid a premium like you did to have a specific site, like you're
Mhm.
just you want your privacy, right? It's just it's not polite. I know
Yeah.
we had some guy who came and would he like came into our site and it was just very clear that that was our site, and there was like a little canal behind it and he's like smoking a cigarette, his morning cigarette, like in our site, just watching it. And I'm just like, dude, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
And then there was another one too where we had a tree that must have been someone's dog's favorite tree, and they would just walk through our entire site every morning to go have the dog use the restroom on the tree.
No.
No, and I was just like, I just cannot with this. And it's hard because, like you said, like we know it's not our property, right? Like
Mhm.
we haven't moved in here, but at the same time, you're like, this is just my, like, I have got like 3 feet, right? Can you respect that?
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think it's hard too, like, and having kids, like, sometimes they're outside, I might be inside, and I'm very uncomfortable when people come through because it's just a safety concern. You never know. So
Yeah.
I'm
And
right there with you on those two.
yeah,
Yeah.
and back
Those
to the dog using the restroom. So often we've been camping and on trails and people just let their dogs go leash free. And then it's like, "Where's that dog pooping?" And it's probably on the trail, and then nobody picks it up, and so or even, like, throughout the campgrounds, typically, it's like you keep your dog leashed, etcetera. We've experienced numerous times where people have had their pets off leash, and then there's just dog poop everywhere, and it's like, pick up after your pets, right? Like, nobody wants to accidentally step in that.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. And like we have a dog too. And I've noticed a lot of people will have their dogs off and the dog will come running up and they always just say, oh, he's friendly. And like I say this to love with anyone listening who happens to do this. The issue is maybe not your dog, but it might be my dog. My dog
Mhm.
is friendly too. However, he is a rescue. He doesn't like to be startled or ran up on by like another dog. Like that's very triggering for him. And while he's not aggressive, he's a big dog. Like he can hold his own. So I just would not recommend, like, even if your dog's friendly, like my dog might not like that. Let's be honest, every RVer has had at least one what the flush moment, the kind where you open the bathroom door and instantly start questioning your life choices. That's why we use Camp Champ products now. Their RV odor abate doesn't mask smells with fake fragrance. It eliminates odors at the source by regulating your holding tank's pH to promote natural enzyme activity. So everything in your tank's continuously breaking down while you're camping, even in the summer. That means instant and lasting odor elimination, less calcium buildup, and better overall tank function. It's environmentally safe, compliant in all 50 states, and completely free from harsh chemicals or residual fragrances. Use the code TAKETHETRIP for 25% off and keep your RV smelling like adventure, not regret. Okay, so what happened with the swamp?
Goodness. So last year we were going to a new campground. We arrived with plenty of time because we try not to get there after dark because it's hard to park in the dark. We were across from this like swampy area with like full of water and the radius to turn into this site was just so tight and tiny. Like it was so small that my husband was turning in and I just went into a full panic because I was like, the ditch, the swamp. And he couldn't hear me because we didn't have good cell reception. So he just had his window down. But it's hard to hear when you're like, you've got your diesel truck, making noise and someone's far back. So then I went running up and I was like trying to point to the ditch where his tire was like just inches maybe from going into this. And if it had of, the whole truck would have like ended up in the ditch, like down into the swamp area. So luckily that didn't happen, but it did take probably a good 5 or 6 attempts at repositioning to be able to avoid that. He ended up having to just kind of like go into the site and at a weird angle, and we just dealt with it. But it also took, I want to say, like half an hour, but it felt like a lot longer because there was a line of cars waiting and watching, and then the people walk up and they're like, do you need some help? Yes, we do. We need this road to be widened and you to not be watching us right now because this added pressure just does not help.
Oh
I know
my God.
they're like well-meaning, but it's just very stressful. And so we have had a couple of instances where like, I'm sorry for what I said while parking the trailer, but we try to keep it down because we don't want to be those people that people talk about after. But that was one of those times that I'm sure people were talking about, oh, that couple that like the guy almost went into the ditch and the wife was yelling. It was quite tense.
Oh my goodness, that is so relatable and I'm sure terrifying because for those 30 minutes when the tire's just like on the verge and you're like, is it
Mhm.
gonna go in the swamp or not? That made me sweaty just thinking about that. So that had to be, yeah, so stressful. And you're so right when everyone's watching and you're just like, yeah, how is this
Yeah,
happening?
and it's a one-way street, so, like, they couldn't turn around and go. They literally just had to turn their cars off and wait until he could get out of the way, so and it was one lane, not great.
Yeah, we've definitely been there. Once there were some really low branches that needed to be trimmed, and unfortunately, I didn't really notice this as spotting. I was spotting like the other side, and I didn't really think the limbs were going to be like a huge deal, but they like were, and it really kind of clipped the side. We ended up having to get a new site because we just couldn't make it work. However, later someone came up to us in the campground, came up to my husband, and he was like, "Hey, you're the ones who hit the tree earlier, right?" Just like
No.
so embarrassing. Yeah, and it was, basically my fault because I was supposed to be spotting, but it's always an experience, right? Camping in
Mhm.
different
Yeah,
ways
luckily,
than
that's probably the worst. Like, we could have lost our vehicle in a swamp experience, but the other ones have just been like, you arrive at dark and then your flashlight only shows so much, and so we have made it like a relationship rule. We cannot arrive after dark and park the trailer because it's just not good for anybody. So
That's a great point. Yeah, we have never done the night setup thing just because like that, I know it wouldn't end well. And one of our rules is not parking on an empty stomach. So we have to make sure we have lots of snacks because I know if anyone's hangry, like that's also going to be one of those situations where someone might be filming us. It's going to go viral later because we're freaking out. So we always try to
it's
make
so
sure.
true. It's
Yeah.
so true.
All right. So before we discuss Canada, let's play a little game called Live, Visit, Exile. So you're going to pick one place to live, one to visit, and then the third you need to exile forever. So the first one is going to be Quebec, Las Vegas, and San Juan, Puerto Rico. So
Ooh,
one you're going to need to live in. One you are going to just be able to visit. And the last one you have to exile. You may never return.
this is hard. I think I would live in Quebec so that I could still be close to family. I would visit San Juan. No, I love Vegas. I'll visit San Juan and I'll exile Vegas because I feel like I can get Broadway shows and things in other places and I'm not a gambler. And San Juan has the same sort of like hot temps. So I'll go with that.
Okay, I think that's a fair, yeah, that's a good assessment of the situation. Like, yeah, what
Mhm.
can you get from each area and where could you get it elsewhere? Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense. I have not been to Quebec yet or San Juan, so I really can't comment. However, we did really enjoy Vegas more than I expected. I really wasn't like expecting that to be my vibe, and we just had so much fun. So I'm
It's
sure that
so pretty there. It's
was,
just
yeah.
I really like it. I just in even just walking up and down this strip of Vegas, that's a fun activity for me because I just like looking at everything because it's amazing.
I totally agree. It has good energy too. Like
Yes.
it really does. It's fun. And my kids just love it. So the next one is a little bit more unique. So the first thing is that you're tent camping on an active volcano, but they claim it won't erupt for 20 years. Okay.
Okay.
A poop cruise. Are you familiar with the poop cruise?
Yes.
Yep. Or Alaska in a cabin that just has like a wood burning fireplace for heat, right? And you would be there in their winter season too. So which one are you going to live in? The poop cruise, cold Alaska in a cabin, or camping on a volcano
I
that won't
think I'm
erupt?
gonna
It
have
won't
to
erupt.
pick Alaska. 'Cause
Okay.
I feel like we could make that work. I would not, even though I love cruising, I would not want to be on a poop cruise at all. That
So
does
are
not
you
sound enjoyable.
Yeah, right? I'm, like, scarred from that documentary for sure. So are you gonna visit the volcano then? Are you gonna go ahead
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna visit the volcano.
Okay. All right. I would have made that same choice too. That's a good call. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about your lovely country. So
Okay.
personally, my family, we used to vacation there every year on Manitoulin Island. We absolutely loved it. So I just have the best memories there. It's holds such a special place in my heart. Now, as like an adult, like I can't imagine going back to the same place like every year, which used to just be the vacation thing, but it worked for us. So, anyways, if someone was new to visiting Canada and they wanted to prioritize like a few places, what would you recommend?
Well, there's just so much to see in Canada, and each province really has their own unique thing. Starting in Ontario, I would say probably Ottawa, which is the capital city of Canada, and Algonquin Provincial Park, which is one of our oldest, I think it is the oldest park here in Ontario. So if you're camping, that would be a great place to go. And then it's not too far away from Ottawa, which is just a beautiful city here. I would also add Banff in Alberta because it's just such a popular place because it's so beautiful with the mountains and the small towns and just so much to do if you like to be outdoors and great for camping. BC, we went to BC a couple of years ago. We did Vancouver Island, we went up to Whistler. Both of those places are just beautiful, and Vancouver itself is beautiful. So those would be some great places. And then out east, if you like small town charm, fishing villages, out east, you can find that in Halifax area, in Nova Scotia, and Cape Breton. There's so much to see and do. Plus Quebec. I forgot Quebec. They've got Quebec City and they've got Montreal. And in Montreal, it kind of feels like you're in Europe because they've got the cobblestone streets and it's just so pretty in the old town. So those are a few highlights that, depending on where you are, because it's so spread out, you can't really easily go one province to the next. You really got to centralize and kind of do a few things in that area.
Right. Okay. So thank you for the crash course in Canada. I
Mhm.
do wonder, is there a province that is kind of like the redheaded stepdaughter, like the one that it's not like the coolest provinces?
I would say, not my personal opinion because I've never been there, but just from what I've heard, the prairies, which is central Canada, so Manitoba and Saskatchewan don't always get the best reputation because Saskatchewan's very flat, so there's like no mountains from what I hear and things to see that's like really, like mountainous and beautiful range, but I would say the prairies don't get the best reputation, and Ontario often gets, where I am located, we're the center of the world, right? They think that everyone here thinks that everything's based around me here in Ontario. And that our friends in Quebec don't often get the best reputation because it's seen as not being as friendly as other places. So those are a few considerations, but I would say the ugly stepsister vibe probably goes to the prairies because people just kind of like avoid that area. I've never been, so I would like to go to see what it's all about.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna have to go and report back and come
I
back and
will,
let us know
yes.
how it
I
is.
would love to take the trailer there and go do
Yeah.
like a camping road trip across Canada.
Heck yeah. And that also kind of makes sense though, because I would say that like, the stepsister in that was such a mean analogy. But in the United States is kind of this like similar area, right? The plains area. So it's like that kind of aligns.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. I also want to circle back on the Quebec thing being unfriendly. So that's where French Canadians are, correct?
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
so I'm just gonna go on a limb here. I will go ahead and say I have noticed a different energy when I've met French Canadians versus English speaking Canadians. So I'm just wondering, is that something that's observed in Canada as well?
I think so. Yeah, I would say so. I have worked with a bunch of different people from Quebec that have all been very nice, and I think it's just the vibe that you get when you're there. I've tried to speak French while I was there, and they're just like, "Ugh, we'll speak English for you. Like, you're not doing a good job." Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like unfriendly, but it's just a different vibe. Yeah,
Interesting. Maybe it is just like a cultural thing and it's
it
not like,
might be.
yeah, not necessarily taking it personally. Cause I feel like sometimes I would like take it personally because it is common, snowbirding. So we
Mhm.
do run into quite a few Canadians, and I'm just always like, oh, I wonder if I think they're the French kind. I can just tell by their body language right now. Oh, interesting. I have a confession. If there was one thing that almost got us off the road, it was the homeschool situation. We felt overwhelmed and learning was feeling stressful for everyone. Then we switched to Me Academy and it honestly changed everything. The lessons are engaging. We love the flexibility. And having the full K-8 course catalog means our kids can work at the level that's right for them. Features like read aloud, captions, and transcripts help them stay independent and confident, which has brought so much peace back into our homeschool days and has them actually loving learning. You can try Me Academy for just $1.99 for the first 30 days, and then you can use the code TRIP20 to save 10 to 20% depending on the subscription type and see how it can bring that same balance to your homeschool journey too. All right, so is there anything about RVing or just traveling in Canada that people should know about if they're not familiar with the country? For example, like loonies and toonies, they're always just going to be epic to me because we don't have those, right? We don't have dollar and $2 coins. It's just so fun. But some people might not realize that if they're getting their change back, or they might, not think to count it, might think someone like shortchanged them or just might not keep the coins. So is there anything else like that or similar that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so I would say the first main thing is that because it's such a big country, each province, and similar probably to the US, like each state would have their own parks. So their own provincially run parks here, each province. But then we have federal parks, and they're also on different booking systems. So that's something that you would need to know. If you want to stay at any of the provincial parks in Ontario, for example, you can book 5 months in advance to the time that you want to go there. So here, it's just kind of like a known thing that like when you're ready to book your site, you got to get online and be there and like try and get there at 7 a.m. so that you can get your site 5 months in advance, because that's how aggressive it can get for getting a campsite here. What else? The further north you go, the more you need to prepare for bugs and bears.
Oh, bugs and
So
bears. Okay.
if you're in bear country, you always have to keep your site clean. You can't have anything out. Almost every night when you go back inside, you need to put everything away. Bears are a consideration that you may not get in some other areas.
Well, that's good to know. And I was also wondering how competitive it is to get a campsite in Canada, because similar here, as far as national parks and a lot of the state parks, it's very hard to get a reservation. So that's good to be mindful if you're planning a trip to make sure that you're booking as soon as you can in whichever campground you're going to for their booking window. So that is good to know. All right. And I don't think that an interview with a Canadian guest could be complete without me bringing up poutine. So can you please explain what this is? Did I pronounce it correctly? And also any other food recommendations that a non-Canadian needs to try when they visit?
Yes. Okay. So it depends also where you are in Canada, but you did pronounce it correctly. But as we also say it as English speaking Canadians, poutine, right? But if you're in Quebec and you're speaking French, it would be poutine. And so it's fries, French fries with gravy and cheese curds. And it's, you put the cheese curds on, then the gravy over top, and it's just delicious and melty and gooey, and it's just so good. So you do need to try that if you are anywhere in Canada. You can add that to your list. Another thing that's pretty popular Canadian dessert is beaver tails, which is basically like a fried piece of dough or something like that. And then they put different toppings on it. So the traditional way is like a cinnamon sugar sprinkled on top, and you eat it warm. And those are also very delicious. So you would want to try that. Out east, we would probably say something like seafood, like lobster or something. And then out west in BC, Nanaimo bars. So if you go to Nanaimo, you have to try a Nanaimo bar, which is another little dessert. It's kind of like a square. It has a base. I don't even really know what's in the base. It's delicious. I've had them numerous times. And there's like a custard and then chocolate on top, and they're so good. It's very sweet though. So those are a few things to try if you're here.
Goodness. Well, thank you. I'm really very interested in going to Canada now after those explanations. Beaver tail. So I hadn't heard of that, or I didn't hear about the bar either. I am wondering, for the beaver tail, have you ever had an elephant ear?
No.
No. Okay. So, because while you're describing it, I was like, I wonder how similar this is to an elephant ear. And elephant ears are kind of like a carnival delicacy, right?
Okay.
And they're very thin. So, but it's like fried dough, and then it does like sometimes the cinnamon sugar, like powdered sugar on top, but it's thin. Are beaver tails like thicker or thinner?
I would say, like, they're about this thick. So
Really
they
interesting.
puff up and they get, like,
They do puff up.
yeah, they do
Okay.
puff up, so they're a little bit doughy on the inside, and yeah, all the different toppings that you can get, I'm just like, "Wow, who even thought of that?" But, like, chocolate drizzle, caramel drizzle, maple syrup, like, different things. Oh, I didn't mention maple syrup when we talked about the Canadian you have to try maple syrup, obviously. Add that one to the list. You can get that one anywhere.
Love it. Okay, so that's good to know. Now I'm really desperate to go try a beaver tail in the bars. All right, we're going to play a game of Would You Rather now. It's Canada edition. Would you rather there was a potato shortage and you can't eat poutine for a year, or you are unable to eat true maple syrup for 6 months and you have to use that maple flavored sugar syrup, right? Instead of the actual maple syrup.
Okay, so I'm gonna answer based on me. I could not deal with a potato shortage because I just love potatoes. My husband, who's not here, but often travels and camps with me, he could not survive without maple syrup. Honestly, he puts it on his oatmeal, his cereal, his ice cream, like he puts it on everything. So if he doesn't have real maple syrup, I don't think he would have it at all. But I would eat I shouldn't say this as a Canadian. I don't mind the fake flavored maple products. Like, I actually kind of like them, and so I'd be fine with that.
That is scandalous,
I
Sarah.
know.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's funny. Okay, and I just love too the fact that your husband, like, that's the most beautiful, like, stereotypical Canadian thing. Like I've
Yes,
heard, he's just put it on everything. Does he also play hockey?
he used to. He
Okay,
did
good.
used to
Okay,
play
so he's really
hockey.
hockey. Okay, this is great.
Mhm.
Okay, we've got the whole image now. Does he wear plaid and he carries around the axe to cut the
The
firewood off?
plaid, but no axe, but the
Okay,
plaid. He actually, if you go into the closet, it's just plaid, flannel plaid. That's his outfit, jeans and flannel plaid.
oh my gosh. Okay. I love it. All right. Would you rather that you go on a beautiful 6 mile Canadian hike, but you forgot your bug spray and it's peak mosquito season, or you remembered your bug spray, but you realized halfway through that hike that your snacks are left out on your picnic table in bear country?
I think I would want the bug spray.
Yeah. And yeah, this is probably doing a solid for your husband too, right? You're going to make
Yeah,
sure you get
yeah,
the
I
bug
don't
spray.
wanna deal with that. Yeah, I would go
Mm,
for the bug spray and
okay.
just hope that nothing happened at my site.
Yeah, right, and if they did, maybe they'd just be really happy and
They
they
take
wouldn't
the
come back
snacks and
again.
go, yeah.
Yeah, right. All right, and last one. Would you rather have a, campsite guarded by a seemingly friendly moose, like a huge moose, but it's just like, I don't know, the mascot of the campsite, or a very aggressive and noisy goose?
The moose.
The
I gotta
moose.
pick the moose over the goose. Those geese, the Canadian geese, can be so vicious. They actually we call them murder chickens around here because they are so unpredictable, and if you get on their bad side, like, they fly at you and they, like, try and bite you. They are not very friendly.
Yeah, right? They are mean, and it's like you'll just be walking by minding your own business and it'll start yelling at you and hissing at you and you're like,
Mhm.
I'm just here, man, like
I'm just
relax.
walking.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
trying to get your eggs, like calm
yeah.
down. That is very interesting. Do people feed them often in Canada?
Maybe, they
I just
kinda hang around with, like, the ducks, and people feed ducks, so they may get fed.
was
Yeah.
just wondering because we were recently at a campsite and there were a lot of Canadian geese, like a lot. There were a lot of people feeding them and
Mm,
gathering them. And I was like, I don't want 100 geese on my campsite right here. This is
mm-mm.
very messy, very loud. And it kind of blew my mind because I thought would never occur to me to feed a goose. I just wouldn't.
No.
And these people were very into it, and it was very alarming
Interesting.
to
Like,
me.
I personally also wouldn't wanna be feeding the geese because with geese comes all of their poop, and, like, that's another thing, like, here in Canada, the campsites, when I'm going around and we're doing, like, our park tours and reviews and things like that, it's like the goose poop in some of these parks is outrageous, just, like, how many geese we have, and so if you feed them, they're just gonna poop more.
Exactly. I was so bummed. Like I couldn't use my site anymore because it was just
Yeah,
yeah,
everywhere you
very
step is a
gross.
landmine. Yeah.
Yeah, for exactly. And then also so about the moose. I
Mhm.
love Obviously, moose, so majestic. However, I did hear they can be rather aggressive. Is this like,
Apparently.
yeah. So have you ever had any issues or what's I know there's more moose obviously in Canada than down here. So what's usually the vibe with the moose?
Honestly, I have yet to see a moose in person while camping, but my husband saw one last year swimming across the lake, and so it's very peaceful. When you get up close to them, like don't get up close to them
Yeah.
because they can be kind of aggressive. And so
Yeah.
one of the parks here in Ontario, Algonquin, that's where you typically hear about seeing moose and having them walk on your campsite or along the highway kind of thing. People get out of their cars and they go up and they try and like get close to take a picture. And we saw some video footage of a moose actually like ramming into one of the vehicles. So don't do that and stay
Yeah.
away and just like zoom in on your phone. But I haven't personally seen one in person, sadly. That's my dream. Like every year I go out and like, this is my year. I'm going to see the moose, and I haven't yet. But I would not get close to them. So hopefully the one that's guarding my site you mentioned is actually friendly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I hope you get that moose this next
Yes,
camping
my
season.
dream.
Yeah, I'd like to see one too. We had a suspected moose sighting, but it was too far to know for sure. All right. Oh my gosh, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on and keeping it real and just telling us all about Canada. I appreciate it so much. If you're not already following her journey, follow her over on Sujanos Travels on YouTube and all the places, from everything from cruising reviews, travel tips, to all the epic campsites in Canada that you didn't know you needed to visit. And if you're still listening, thank you so much. Reach out over on Take the Trip fam to say hey or share some wild questions that you want us to ask next. Don't unbuckle just yet. I want to share a song with you that I guarantee you've never heard before. And a huge thank you to the sponsors of today's episode, eTrailer and Camp Champ. These companies are true staples in the RV community, and their support gives these incredible travelers another space to share their journeys and inspire others. Be sure to check out Camp Champ's line of tank treatments and cleaning essentials and make eTrailer your go-to for all your RV upgrades. They really do have it all.
Backpacks by the back door, cruise tags on the floor, map of every shoreline pinned above the drawer. Sarah's got a suitcase full of secret hacks, how to see the whole world and still make it back from the pines to the pier. Every road's calling us near. Got a list and a dream and a tank full of let's just see. We're chasing moose tracks and ocean maps, cabin to cabin, deck to deck, from the Rockies air to the rolling swells. Two hearts, one travel checklist, poutine fingers, beaver tail crumbs, laugh until the daylight's done. Canada to anywhere the water runs. Sujanos Travel, we're already gone. Hey! Hey!
Campfire in the rain, light steam on metal cups. Northern sky above us, can't quite get enough. City dock at sunrise, boarding with a grin. Sarah's whispering shortcuts, here's how you sneak that view in.
From the trails to the tide, every mile you're by my side. Got our boots and our best and a waterfront balcony nest. We're chasing moose tracks and ocean maps, cabin to cabin, deck to deck, from the Rockies air to the rolling swells. Two hearts, one travel checklist, poutine fingers, beaver tail crumbs, laugh until the daylight's done. Canada to anywhere the water runs. Sujanos Travels, we're already gone. If we spot that moose one day, you'll be filming. I'll just say this beats dodging those birds by the lake.
Oh no, so here's to every port and pine, every border, every skyline. Holds this passport hand in mine.
We're chasing moose tracks and ocean maps, cabin to cabin, deck to deck, from the Rockies air to the rolling swells. Two hearts, one travel checklist, poutine fingers, beaver tail crumbs, laugh until the daylight's done. Canada to anywhere the water